I know that we were talking a little bit about how when we're in high school, there's a lot of pressure to choose subjects. And one of the things that I think I told you about when we first met, Nora, was the fact that when I was in high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I felt really behind because of that. So, for example, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and it was a relatively small group, and everyone had their niche. Girls either did all science subjects, all math subjects, all English subjects, history, whatever it was that then led them to the degree that they were getting into. And interestingly, there was like a handful of us, probably like 6 to 8 girls. We all did really general subjects. And I remember not knowing what I wanted to do at uni, but instead what actually happened was all of the girls who did the same subjects as me, we all went to exactly the same university and we did exactly the same degree. And honestly, looking back on it, I felt like I was definitely a sheep in that, seriously, because no one but me knew the direction I wanted to go in, but I was so focused on having an answer and going to uni and following what the people around me were doing that I thought, okay, well, if we're doing the same subjects, they're doing teaching. Okay, well, that makes sense for me. And admittedly, getting into it, I enjoyed the process. I loved uni life. I loved the people that I met, and we did placement at the uni I went to from the first year, which was fantastic. I met the most incredible teacher. We actually still keep in touch.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she is amazing. She really taught me what it meant to be a primary educator, and I actually went back to her classroom voluntarily throughout that year to help out with different aspects of the day-to-day of being in a classroom. And I think that really set the tone for me to understand what it was that I loved about the space. But one thing that really hit me, maybe like slapped me in the face rather, was I realized that I started to rush myself. So rather than doing the degree in 4 years, I did it in just over 3. And girl, I put myself through summer school. I put myself through winter school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was all happening. After a massive semester, I had pretty much no break and I just did back to back. And then my reward at the end of it was I took myself on a trip around Europe and the UK.
Oh, beautiful.
It was amazing and I loved it. And what I realized when I was over there was I actually met a few, but in particular one girl who was already a teacher in Sydney, New South Wales. And when I spoke to her on that trip, she was filled with so much joy for coming back and getting back into teaching. And on the other hand, I reflected on it when I was over there and I was filled with existential dread about the idea of getting into routine. And I remember having conversations with this girl. We were in Switzerland, we were in Germany, we were in Italy, we were in France. And I was trying to understand how this girl could possibly be so excited to teach, because by this point I had done almost a year of teaching through placement and it just was not my thing, and I was trying to convince myself that it was. And it wasn't until I got back and I started working for a little bit that I realized exactly what I said, that I loved the aspect of teaching, but it just wasn't in schools. It wasn't in that structure. And that's definitely where I leaned further into asking myself, okay, what is it that I actually want to do, and what is it about teaching that I enjoy? And what I found was I was so much more invested in the personal lives of the kids that I worked with, their family dynamic, their sibling dynamic. Everything that made them a person is the thing that really made me love spending time with them. But obviously when you're a teacher, you have to focus on their academics.
Yeah, of course.
And that just wasn't there for me. And so through paying attention to that, it helped me to navigate where I wanted to put my attention and my focus and my energy. And at that point, I took a really big leap of faith. I mean, going back to uni, it's looking back on it now, I'm almost 30. But when I went back to uni, I was in my mid-20s. And at that point, everyone around me, again, the girls that I went to school with, the group that I had around me, they were already in their careers. They had started working for a few years. They loved their degree. They loved their job. And I felt like I was 10 steps behind everyone because I was starting again.
Yeah, I can resonate with that.
Right? And it's such a big feeling too, because when you go through 17 years of life, when you go from kindergarten, in primary school, all throughout until year 7, and then throughout high school, and then you also go through university with the same people, and then at some point your lives start pivoting and everyone's at different stages. It feels really hard to then take so many steps back. So I was really unsure about it, but I am so happy that I made the decision, because I remember saying to myself that I'm going to turn 30 one day anyway, and I
Yep.
can either turn 30 with or without the degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in my mid-20s thinking 30 is so far away, and here we are in 2026 and I'm turning 30 this year.
Yeah.
And it is wild, but I'm so glad that I made a good decision, because going back to uni was not easy, but I definitely made it work for me. I decided to study actually at a university in Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah. So different from what I did initially, but it was all online, and it gave so much flexibility. I mean, we talk about work-life balance, don't we?
Yeah, a lot.
And the importance of creating that. And I mean, that's not to say that the degree was easy. It was so challenging because it had to be self-paced. You had to really make sure that you were putting in the time and effort and creating a schedule for yourself. But I'm really organized. I love that stuff. That is like my bread and butter, as we know. So I really enjoyed getting to know who I was in being a lot more autonomous in my learning. And it was a hard journey. I had to do a postgraduate equivalent of a Bachelor of Psychology and then a postgraduate equivalent of an honours year, both of which were challenging because you're learning to be self-sufficient in in an online bachelor's equivalent, and then in an honours you're learning to be a researcher in a much more independent way when you don't have the skill set. But in amongst that, I've been working in the allied health space, and I've really loved it because there's been obviously a lot of alignment between what I've learnt behind the scenes theoretically, and then also applying to my role, but then also making friends with people like yourself. There's been that alignment and connectivity with things that we do and we speak about because we have an alignment in who we are and also where we are professionally too. But I think your journey looked a little bit different from mine. I believe you started in a Bachelor of Arts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did. I started in a Bachelor of Arts because I didn't have it figured out and I didn't know where I wanted to go, like what career I was going to have. And again, felt a lot of pressure to have it figured out. Which is a common experience, isn't it? It is very common, very common. And from there, I did a variety of subjects just to get a feel of what I might like, what I might enjoy. And within that, there were a few psych subjects, which I naturally enjoyed and sort of gravitated towards and resonated with.
So tell me, what made you feel that you resonated with psych-related subjects? I feel like getting into the space that we're in, it's really natural to gravitate towards human behavior and understanding it, right? What was it for you that made you feel like maybe a sense of joy or a spark when you were exploring psych-related subjects?
I think I was just trying to figure myself out.
Nice. Yeah. Figuring out the journey.
Figuring out myself, because I think I struggled a lot with my identity and making decisions and choices and what it was that I actually wanted versus what other people wanted me to want. And having just my own experience of mental health struggles, it kind of just felt like it went hand in hand by studying psychology. So I ended up, I think I just stayed in the Bachelor of Arts for the first semester, and then second semester I transferred into psych as my major.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Made that a bigger focus of your studies.
Made that a bigger focus to graduate with that and then move on into the mental health space.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And how do you feel that your degrees and the learning that you made in that time has kind of translated to where you are now? Because I feel as though, although there's such an alignment, there has to be a reason that keeps us in the space, because the work that we do is not easy. The client base that we work with is not easy. And I consider that going into the area of study that we did, there's this idea that there's a linear way to help people, that there's a start and a finish. Whereas the people that we work with, linear is non-existent because of the different challenges that life presents to every human, right? So kind of what is it that you feel keeps you in the role that you're in now?
I think what keeps me in the role that I'm in now is my genuine passion for the work and the people that I support, not just clients, but the staff as well.
Absolutely.
So as you were talking about loving learning and teaching, but not necessarily in a school space, I sort of feel the same. Like I love supporting and coaching and mentoring, the staff that I work with. I really enjoy training I can do that with the people that I work with, but I could not do that in a school environment.
Absolutely. I think schools are so structured, and there's so many things that you have to do to be able to teach something in that setting. Whereas where we are, it's almost like learning can happen a little bit more naturally.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of on the go learning.
Absolutely. It allows us to be in our flow state, right? Like life can unfold and we use that almost as like teachable moments rather than trying to create or manufacture rather learning opportunities. But I have to say, from seeing you in action and also hearing the feedback that clients, but also teams have had about you and the way that you show up, you are really incredible at what you do. And it goes beyond those words because you really show up for people in such a full way. And even if you're not feeling like today is your day, you're still able to show up 110% for people. And I think a big part of that comes from people like us knowing that we want to give our all to others because that might be the highlight of their day. Yeah. We can go and enjoy other parts of our day and make them the best part of our day. But for a lot of the people that we work with, what we're doing with them is the thing that matters the most.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And I don't take that lightly. I've always thought about the clients in that sense. I've always had the mentality that at the end of the day, I get to go home to friends, to loved ones. I have a life outside of this. Yeah. And not all of them do.
Exactly.
So wanting to give them my all to hopefully make that difference in a day and long term to sort of better their lives, improve their quality of life. And when you see the result, the satisfaction that brings, nothing really compares to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you say that nothing compares to it because it's all about that real human connection. And it's about knowing that who we are is enough to make a really big difference in the lives of others. And I think that's a really good way to look at the next part of what we wanted to talk about today, which was looking at what has actually brought us to wanting to be podcast hosts specifically. I know that something that you and I have spoken about really openly with one another is that while we really love the work that we do and the value that we bring, and going back to what we were saying, teaching and educating and overall providing support, something that we really wanted to do was create, I guess, a better sense of work-life balance for ourselves, but not just work-life balance. You and I have spoken about life-work balance specifically. Yes. Do you have some thoughts around what has made you want to pivot away from perhaps being so client-focused to being a little bit more?
It's definitely been a push-pull struggle. Because like I said, I love the work that I do. I have passion for it. I enjoy witnessing the difference that I can make in people's lives. But the system that it sits in doesn't necessarily offer me the flexibility or the balance to enjoy life and look after myself as much as I would like to. So I think that's been a real struggle and led to a lot of burnout over the years, and switching sort of between jobs because of that. At the end of the day, I always give my all. And I think because I do that, I do burn out quite quickly.
Absolutely. Because it's like you're giving your all outwardly, but then there's not enough to give back to yourself inwardly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you said, there's a lot to the work that we do. And me being client-focused and staff-focused, I do constantly give a lot. There's a lot of output. So I do need the time to fill my own cup and rest and recover. And there isn't always that time.
Absolutely.
And things have just felt really busier over the last couple of years, that I haven't really felt like I can necessarily do that. There's been a shift and focus towards everything being back in the office and office-based now. Like after COVID and the whole work from home thing, I feel like it's kind of died out in the last couple of years, and people are trying to get like that sense of normalcy again, where it's like, well, the world's not on fire anymore, so
absolutely,
let's just get back to what we were doing.
Absolutely. Regularly scheduled programming back in the office.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily work when you kind of calculate.
It doesn't, does it? Because we also look at what you just mentioned there with creating a sense of normality. but what is normal? COVID and the pandemic and the way that shifted life for everyone changed what we value and what we consider to be normal.
Yes.
And interestingly, I love that you specifically said COVID, because in a lot of conversations we hear that employers will say COVID is now not as prominent as it was, back to the office everyone goes. But in reality, going back to the phrase that we were talking about, right, we as a society want a work life, but specifically a life work balance.
Yeah.
We had that taste of what life could look like when work was able to be adapted to the way that we are as humans. Because the way that we were during the pandemic was, yes, we were socially isolated, but we had more time to spend with ourselves and to invest in things that actually filled up our cup personally rather than professionally.
Yeah.
And for some people, there was obviously that balance there. It's not to take away from the work that so many people were doing. Law enforcement, medical staff, they were full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And perhaps things look different for them. But I consider for people who were in our shoes, life looked like creating more of a balance between who we are personally and professionally, which allowed us to really thrive and flourish. Whereas what I'm hearing from you now is that push to being back in an office space full time and not having that time to yourself has been a real challenge.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge, especially because I actively manage my mental health and my physical health. So not having enough space for that, I've really felt the impact over the last year, which is why I've been thinking about what do I want my life to look like moving forward. Is it just going to be like a 9 to 5 in an office for the rest of my life, working for somebody else, when I have always felt like I want to build something that's my own so that I can structure it around the life that I want? And I think that there's been a shift towards more of that lately. Like I know over the last year, a lot of people talking about the millennial crisis.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. So I realized, we're not the only ones. I think a lot of people are feeling unappreciated and
Absolutely.
not valued enough by employers, organizations, businesses.
But also that there's no scope for creativity in their skills there, right? Like you hear so many people, going back to what we were saying earlier, in the past, in previous generations, and even people who might be in our generation, but just on the older end of it, they stay in careers for stability. Whereas now, more and more people, only after a few years, are quitting their corporate job. It's become this like slogan on social media. And it comes from a place of, even though these people might be in industries that aren't necessarily creative, they're pigeonholed into having to do certain things. They've got dot points in their job description that they have to do, and people are getting really sick and tired of not being able to have a sense of creativity and input into the work that they're doing and therefore the life that they're living.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that's also what we're experiencing as well, right?
I think so, definitely.
I would consider for myself, when it comes to looking at, what I want the future to look like, a big chapter for me was figuring out next steps after working in schools and figuring out that I wanted to teach in a different way. And now that I've studied psychology and I've gone through the research process and I work in an industry that, while I'm not practicing as a psychologist, I'm able to work with a lot of allied health professionals and really understand human behavior on a very multifaceted level, like from the level of communication from speech therapists, on fine and gross motor skills from an OT. It's helped me to see that, similar to what you're saying, I really want to achieve a better life-work balance.
Yeah.
But also, I really want to be able to foster a sense of creativity. And for me, creativity looks like being able to share good things that happen. I think that a lot of people that, may start a content creation journey or a podcast journey, it's pigeonholed into, I want to be creative, but people don't always say why they want to be creative.
Yeah.
And personally, I would say that when I finished my honours year, I had about a 6-month window of being absolutely exhausted because, Noura, I was studying for 10 years straight out of uni, went into a massive degree, was working, always doing little things on the side, and then I got into another degree. And then last year hit, 2025, and it was such an incredible year to just carve my own path, to make time my own, to build routines, and to actually live, to do the things that I had seen people that I went to high school with, to uni with. They were doing that when we finished our first degree because they weren't silly like me and went back straight after. And so I think for me, creativity means something that would allow me to bring the good that I feel exists in my life and share it with more people like we are, because people like you and I, we have such good conversations about so many different topics. And I think that allows for creativity to really feel really fulfilling and feel really colorful, and it adds a really vibrant color palette to a life that's otherwise often it really feels quite grey. And that vibrancy is really important.
And like you're saying, creativity is different to everyone, and I do feel as though I am a creative person.
Well, you are very creative, because you have started a few other businesses which are incredible, and you have a really cool interest in like the retro vintage vibes. Like, you've got so much color to your personality.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do think so. And at the same time, I feel like I don't have enough time to really explore it.
And to invest in it.
Because of the amount of work
Yes.
that happens.
Absolutely.
You know, just naturally, when I calculate how many hours I spend a week between work and travel.
I was just going to say that.
Up,
the travel, it adds to it significantly, right?
It's so full on. And then you're expected to catch up on your life within 2 days on the weekend. And it's just this constant feeling of overwhelm and just not being able to catch up on all the things that you need to catch up on, because there just isn't enough time
to catch up on,
that you want to catch up on.
And there's only so many things that we can do. Like, we've spoken about this a lot, right? Like, you've told me a little bit about getting back into the gym and into doing classes. But the thing is, after we've had a massively long day at work, we then think to ourselves, okay, I want to, but no, I have to go to the gym. I have to go to this class that I signed up for. You go and you feel great, and it's like, yes, I've ticked a box because I've done something. I do the same thing. But then it's the sort of thing of, okay, I'm getting home late, and then I'm eating dinner late. And then by the time you can actually have some downtime, it usually looks like the standard scrolling on your phone or just going to bed. There's no time to actually live, and it becomes more about box checking rather than actually doing something meaningful.
I think I really felt that last year, that I didn't really have much time to live and give back to myself, that it was just about work. And I had the realization of, is this it? Like, is this what my life is going to look like for the next 5-10 years? Because I'm not sure I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
I'm not feeling okay with that. So,
but what a great realization to have.
Right. And I think that's what started this journey as to where we are now, is that there is more to life. And I think it's just about sort of taking a chance on yourself, taking a risk, to explore what that might be, to create something for yourself and a life that's worth living, that you're content with and that you're getting the most out of.
Absolutely. And that brings us to what we wanted to talk to our audience about in the next episode, where we were looking at shifting the conversation to talking a little bit more about the topic of wellness. Looking at what we have been doing to be able to focus more on ourselves personally, again, separating that personal and professional mindset, and really nourish our minds, bodies and souls with all of the good things. So that will be in an episode that is coming up next.
Amazing. Can't wait to talk about it more.
Wonderful. Well, we will see you then.
Bye.